If you're looking for a super simple, super tasty winter warmer drink, I've got you covered. Let me show you how to make a hot port with whiskey. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Matt, I'm the Whiskey Nerd, and like I said, this week I'm making a really nice, really simple winter warmer cocktail. I'm making a hot port with a bit of whiskey because I really do like a hot port. It's a simple enough kind of cocktail you should be able to get at most bars in Ireland and maybe elsewhere in the world. It's essentially just port with some hot water, a slice of lemon and a few cloves in it. But for my version, I'm going to be spiking up with a little bit of whiskey to add a little bit of extra flavor and a little bit of extra, well, kind of booze to this lovely simple cocktail. But I'm not just using any whiskey. I'm using the latest release from Dingle, the Greenstad Angira. This is a lovely Irish whiskey. It was matured in bourbon casks and finished for 2.5 years in tawny port casks, which had a huge influence, adding extra kind of berry, fruity, jammy notes that I think goes really well and mixes really well into this cocktail. If you haven't seen my review of this whiskey, I'll put a link to it up there. I'll put a link down below in the description. You can check that out afterwards because this is a really lovely whiskey just in time for Christmas. But what else is going into the cocktail? Well, I'm using some port. This here is a ruby port. I'm not going to get into all the details between ruby and tawny port and white port, but suffice it to say, ruby port is a red port wine. It's sweet. It's really sweet. It's basically, they take a wine that's low in alcohol because they didn't really add the yeast in for a long time, and then they add some alcohol to it, generally speaking like a grape brandy, and this brings it up to 19% alcohol by volume, but it's still really sweet. This is a ruby port, which means it's only been aged for maybe a couple of years in a barrel. Tawny ports, I'll put a picture of it up there so you can see the difference. Like, it's literally the name, ruby for ruby red, tawny for kind of a more of a tawny color. Tawny ports are aged for a lot longer. They lose some of those bright fruity notes and instead go more of like the deeper, darker kind of caramelly notes, maybe a bit of nuttiness as well. So just a little bit different, but I'm going with a ruby port, so I have those bright, fresh notes right up front in my hot port. I'm just gonna go with a slice of lemon, and a few cloves in there. Just add a bit of extra flavor, a bit of extra kind of citrus, which I think elevates it up a little bit. So that's enough talking about the cocktail. It's time we make it. And like I said, it's a very simple cocktail. You build it in the glass. And I've actually had this glass warming with some hot water in it until just a second ago when I dumped it off camera. It's important to have like a warm glass because when you add in your hot water later on, it's important to have like hot water to make the cocktail last a little bit longer. We're going to start off with our ruby port. We're going to go in with 45 ml or 1.5 ounces of ruby port. Like I said, this is really, I can smell it already. This is really rich, really fruity. If you really have a nice big sweet tooth, you can go in with a little bit more. But I think, especially when we're adding a little bit of whiskey in later on, 45 ml does go a long way because it's very sweet and concentrated. Speaking of our whiskey, I'm going to go in with 15 ml, just 1/2 ounce of whiskey. This has a lovely flavor. It comes in at 50.5% alcohol by volume or 101 proof. So a little bit of it does go a long way and does add a nice bit of flavor to our cocktail. Just gonna go in there with 1/2 ounce of this lovely Dingle Greenstad Angira whiskey. And thanks to movie magic, I have got some freshly boiled water just here. You can probably see it's steaming a little bit. And I've got a slice of lemon already there with a couple of cloves. So I'm just gonna pop that over the edge. And I'm gonna pour in my hot water. I'm not gonna be particular about how much hot water I'm gonna go in. This is an Irish coffee glass. I'm just going to top it up just to the top with that little bit of hot water just to give us a nice kind of bit of heat, lengthen the cocktail and just add a little bit more of a dimension to it. So that right there is how I make a very nice kind of spiked up hot port with whiskey. Now, before I taste this cocktail while it's still hot, if you're new here, scroll down, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button. I put out whiskey reviews on Wednesdays, like the review of this Dingle whiskey. And I put out cocktail recipes featuring whiskey like this every Friday, but let's taste this. Cheers. Oh, that's lovely. Like I said, a hot port is really nice. To me, it's one of those kind of classic winter cocktails. Port gives you this lovely, rich kind of berry, fruity notes to it. And then the little bit of whiskey adds a little bit more of a punch, a little bit more weight, but it's not fighting the port. It's not like I've added in something that doesn't mix well. That whiskey pairs really well here. The little bit of citrus, a little bit of cloves. If you watch my review of this Dingle whiskey, it has got some really nice kind of spicy baking spices and cloves notes, and that really works well here. It adds a bit of punch, a bit of weight, but it doesn't fight the essence of the cocktail. Yeah, just really nice. Very simple to kind of drink, very simple to enjoy. It's kind of like a mulled wine. Like if you like mulled wine, or Glühwein if you're in Europe, it's kind of like that. A little bit richer, a little bit maybe sweeter, maybe less of the spices and more of like the wine note, because that port is so kind of rich and dense, but it's kind of like that. The bit of lemon helps cut through the sweetness, so it's not like sticky, it's not like cloying. That little bit of lemon definitely cuts through the sweetness a little bit, making it just a very, very nice, tasty little drink. So I'm going to keep on enjoying this, and I will see you next time. Sláinte.